Mini DRS, flexi wing, that is the talk of the town, and today I want to talk about it and the implications that this has for multiple teams on the grid. So the FIA have said to be extremely unhappy with certain teams after putting some cameras and devices on cars in testing in Australia, and I think they've seen something they don't like, because as of the Chinese GP, they have advised a new technical directive. So it's the gap between the main plane and the wings has to go from the usual 2mm to 0.5mm, which is quite a drastic change. This rule was to come in Spain, but the FIA have pushed it forward to the Chinese Grand Prix. They announced it only days after the Australian Grand Prix. My first concern is, how are the teams going to do this? There must be a way for them to change it, otherwise I couldn't see them putting this directive out. Or do they have different specs of the wing that doesn't have this? I'm just a bit confused, because I'm like, well, how does that work? Because they can't have a new wing and ship it to China within a few days. That just isn't possible. So I'm just thinking, how are the teams going to do this? There must be like mechanisms on the wings that they can close the gaps and open them wider or something, because that's the only explanation. I'm not like an aerodynamic whiz kid. I can tell you like how they're going to do it or how they're not going to do it, but hopefully all teams can pass it this weekend, because I don't want to see anyone get disqualified for that. But in fairness, I feel like the FIA, they could have given them another race, considering this was back to back, and it's just a bit weird to me that the FIA have decided to move so quick with this. They didn't even give it a couple of days and they released this, and to have it with immediate effect. Now, is this down to Mclaren's insane pace at the Australian GP? Are the FIA saying, no, we want to have a closer field, like this is not how it's meant to be, because this season has been ramped up to be one of the closest seasons ever? Yes, we've only had Australia and we don't know some of the true potential, some of the true pace of other cars, because we've only had one race. So how come we can't judge a whole season off of one race? But it's just a bit fishy that the FIA have done this. But McLaren aren't the only team that use the Mini DRS. It's also believed that Ferrari are heavily users of it, and obviously many other teams of the grid. Basically, wouldn't surprise me if every single team on the grid have used this at some point to some degree. But as usual, Red Bull have been the one crying about it to the FIA and getting on at them. They always seem to be favourites and get what they want. Christian Horner, I don't know what he does all day. He must just sit on the phone to the FIA and complain about other people's cars when he doesn't make a fast enough one. But that's his problem. Maybe he should worry about making a fast enough car and not worry about other teams' cars. But this also gets me into something else. The FIA seem to be recently constantly punishing innovation, and that any innovation that's made, yes, if it gives team a sizable advantage, I can see why you would want to take that away. But it's like the pinnacle of motorsport. F1 is about innovation, and it seems like as soon as someone makes a good innovation or something that's something that really helps the car, they just want to take it away from that team, which I can see both sides. I can see how you want to kind of a level playing field. You don't want to have a really dominant team, because that is boring and it's entertainment at the end of the day. So I totally get why would they do that. But on the other hand, do you not want to reward innovation? Because then you're kind of in danger of what is the point of this sport if you're just going to never reward innovation, and then you're just kind of making all of the cars the same if you keep taking away certain things. I'd like to know your opinion down below and let me know what you think of that. Me, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. It's a pretty grey area, and I think this is definitely not going to be the end of this at all. Now, going back to McLaren, it is thought that McLaren are one of the most prolific users of the Mini DRS, which is not surprising, but what I want to know is this giving McLaren a sizable advantage, and why did the FIA have to act so fast to get it removed, especially after McLaren's crazy pace in Australia? So I'm just kind of wondering, why have they done this so quickly? Do they think it's going to peg McLaren back? Which makes sense, because they want to have better racing, and at the end of the day, F1 is to make money. So I'm just kind of wondering that, and then I'm wondering the effect that it will actually have on McLaren and some other teams. Is it going to peg McLaren right back? Are we going to see a more level playing field in China? If I'm being completely honest, I don't see it doing a whole lot to McLaren, because it seems like they have other things going on with their tires that have some sort of cooling in their tires. So maybe the FIA are going to move on to that next, because we all know Red Bull will be on the phone straight away. If the McLaren is still that fast in China, they're going to be looking in their handbooks, trying to find anything that they can pull McLaren back with and say they're not doing this right, they're bending the rules here, as Red Bulls always seem to do. We always seen that with them with Mercedes. They would always try and find something that they were doing and be like, no, this isn't fair, no, please don't do this. But it is interesting to me to see if McLaren are still going to have that proper pace. It is going to be really interesting to see the pecking order this weekend, because I don't really think that Australia was that representative. There was multiple changing conditions. It's the first week back of the season. Not everybody's going to have their setups. People are still figuring out their cars. I expect certain teams to be higher. I expect certain teams to fall back a bit. I think we could see a completely different grid in China. I'm going to be paying close attention to the top to see the gaps. And also different track suit, different cars. Some cars are track specific. So I'm just really interested to see what is going to happen this weekend and see the implications of the FIA rules and see what would just happen anyway in China, because we've only had one race. So it's going to be interesting to see the balance of where the pecking order is going to be. Is anyone going to drastically fall back? Is anyone going to be able to catch the McLarens? Is anyone going to be able to get anywhere close to them? Because in Australia, the big problem in qualifying was sector 3. McLaren were hanging on to their tyres where every other team wasn't. I think Verstappen and Leclerc were matching the McLarens in sector 1 and sector 2 in Australia. But when it came to the third sector, the McLarens had dunked 4/10 on a lot of them. So, and that is down to mostly tyre preparation and how they're holding on to their tyres. And we've seen that in race pace as well. So that is just got me thinking that could change depending on the track. It is possible. And also, if the Mini DRS is helping McLaren as much as some people think, could that have effect on their tires and their degradation? I guess only time will tell. But let me know your thoughts down below, because this is very curious, and this is something that's not just going to end this week. This is something that's going to keep going. We have a further clampdown in Spain. This is going to ramble on throughout the season, I think, and we're not going to hear the end of this discussion. Let me know down below what you think. Let me know your predictions for this weekend. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate everyone's support and love on the channel. I really appreciate it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.